So I noticed just the other day you were banned from Twitter. Now, I'm somebody, nobody can argue against my lefty credentials. Everybody knows I'm a man of the left. Having said that, my solution on this issue of social media censorship has always been, look, we need to expand First Amendment protections. And the way you do that is to regulate these big social media companies like their public utilities. So if you do that, then basically you're saying this is the new public square and people can...
Please help me communicate with HasanAbi about the BBC World interview. Can't DM you. Yeah, you're talking to CMAC, right? Just give him the details on what it's about.
Speak their mind here. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you can't, dox people or do direct threats of violence or anything.
He's definitely not a leftist. Of course he is. The fuck do you mean? Kyle Kulinski has... he has takes that I don't... Kyle Kulinski has takes that I don't always agree with. But yeah, he is still definitely a leftist. Come on. Don't be ridiculous now.
Anything that's actually illegal will remain illegal. But outside of that, you can't censor people just based on political opinion. So, I definitely wouldn't have banned you, suspended you, etc. But I do have a question about that specific tweet that did get you in trouble because, you said something to the effect of...
well, I don't know if it got me in trouble. I don't think I'm in trouble. Twitter banned me, but I don't consider that trouble.
Dog, you made a whole fucking video about it. Of course you're in trouble. Or are you saying that you made a whole fucking video about it for no reason? I guess that's technically what he's saying, right? That's what he's talking about. Not in trouble. Okay.
That's fair enough. Fair point. But you said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin?
I gotta pee.
And
I'll be back.
The criminal physician.
And Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Exactly. So my question is the physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
Not everything legal isn't criminal. And do they have that right? See, I would have left Ellen Page alone if she hadn't been parading her new abs in a fashion magazine. How many kids do you think she can convince to convert? One?
Yeah.
1,000? No, not yeah.
No,
really?
I want to respond to that. I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are who they are. And if they're gay, they just decided to be like, yeah, I'm gay. And they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No,
you're
that's
just
not
saying,
what happened.
If you are that, it's okay.
Wrong.
Okay. Well,
you're utterly wrong.
Listening.
There's nothing about that that's right.
So explain.
Well, there's been an absolute... Look, one of the reasons that I opposed Bill C-16 in Canada to begin with, this pronoun compelled speech bill, was because I knew perfectly well what was going to happen when we introduced confusion about gender identity into the public sphere. Now, the argument was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals. And my analysis as a clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically saved, we doom 1,000 more as a consequence of confusion and social confusion.
Dude, that's awesome. Hey, Jordan, I think you got those facts wrong, brother. For every supposed person that you believe is statistically speaking, at least, if you were to actually look at the empirical evidence, for every person that regrets their decision to transition, the overwhelming majority, not 99% are actually super happy and their lives are greatly improved as a consequence of this. Yeah, just no, dude. No, you are so wrong. None? Wait, are you talking to me? Are you actually a believer that there are too many people? There are there's a significant number of people who regret transitioning? Because that's not true. Oh, okay. No, he was talking to Jordan Peterson. Okay, hold on. I got to run it back. I want to hear this again. I'm sorry.
Public sphere. Now, the argument was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals. And my analysis as a clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically saved, we doom 1,000 more as a consequence of confusion and social contagion. I knew the literature on psychogenic epidemics.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the opposite of that, by the way. Like, he's just lying. I don't think I mean, maybe he knows he's lying. Maybe he doesn't know he's lying, but he's lying. The notion of, like, social contagion and, like, people are being transed is completely ridiculous. And not only that, but also, for every one person that's getting a justifiable surgery or undergoing HRT and transitioning, there's 1,000 is just the exact reverse, as a matter of fact. Actually, even worse than that, there are tens of thousands of people that get this surgery, and oftentimes there's like one. It's a smaller percentage than 1%, if I'm not mistaken. The detransitioning rates are super, super fucking rare. But not only that, but also, like, he knows it's the J.K. Rowling take of girls are being convinced to be trans because, again, women are too stupid to know themselves. Yeah. People who get cosmetic surgeries all the time, why aren't they worried about banning those? That's actually a really good point, especially because the cosmetic surgery procedure is not, like, life-saving in the same way. Cosmetic surgeries can be life-saving, but it's life-improving for the most part. However, having said that, cosmetic surgeries are not in the same vein as life-saving of a medical procedure as HRT is, considering the suicide rate of trans people. Only one child in the cohort later identified as cisgender after being prescribed puberty blockers or hormone therapy, and the others who re-identified as cis did so before blockers were even on the table. Yeah. And once again, it's wild for Jordan Peterson to say this, considering that he has gotten gender-affirming surgery in the form of a hair transplant surgery. He literally did that. Jordan Peterson's hairline didn't used to look like this. It has gotten worse over the years, but it used to be much worse than this. He got hair plugs. Shut the fuck up, Jordan.
They used to call that mass hysteria, and it's a literature that goes back about 300 years. And when you introduce social confusion, you can produce a psychogenic epidemic, especially generally it's adolescent females who are most susceptible to it. So I thought, oh, well, what's going to happen is we'll produce a psychogenic epidemic of gender dysphoria among adolescent females. And that is exactly what's happened. And it isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are, in doubt about their identity to be who they are. That may have happened in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion. Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection.
Trans surgery industry. Dog, you mean doctors? Is that what we're talking about? Just doctors in general? Like, what do you mean? Is like trans surgery even a fucking specific branch of surgery? Like, you have like plastic surgeons who specialize in noses and whatnot, right? Like, is that even a thing? I feel like he's just making this shit up. Maybe it is. I don't know. Even so, of course, I have no problem with this. I have no issue with this because I'm not a fucking transphobic piece of shit. You know what I mean? He's like, oh yeah, these doctors, these big trans, they're in the pocket of big trans. Oh no, a lot of trans people are going to be comfortable in their own bodies. That's unacceptable. I want them to kill themselves. That's Jordan Peterson's entire take. If you're transphobic, that's literally what you're fucking saying. You just don't want people to comfortably transition. You don't want people to be fucking comfortable in their own skin. You don't want it. For what reason? For made-up reasons. Literally, he made up the reason. He said, well, what about the people that detransition, bucko? It is statistically insignificant in comparison to the overwhelming amount of positivity that comes from people who are getting, people who are transitioning and how much their fucking suicide rates drop as a consequence of that. It's ridiculous. And it's still too high even after surgery, because social acceptance is unfortunately incredibly low because of people like this fucking asshole. But ultimately, remember, like, these are guys who are technically social libertarians. Like, they're not. It's a specialization that some plastic surgeons have, but there's no trans medical school, like no BBL med school or nose job med school. No.
For you lefty types and your anti-corporatism, growth rate projection, 15% per year.
Dude, this is my favorite type of right-wing reactionary commentary now, is like, well, we hate corporations. Well, I hate corporations. Like, bro, you're literally an oil lobbyist. Homie, you are an oil lobbyist, okay? You have done lobbying. You have repeated oil lobbyist propaganda. What the fuck do you mean, big trans?
Invest now. A $350 million business.
I can't do the BBC. Dude, the thing is, like, as much as I want to go on BBC World, I can't go on BBC World today.
Projected to expand to $750 million by 2027. No moral hazard there. There's plenty of moral hazard there. And that surgery is absolutely brutal.
So what percentage of the population do you think, in your conception of how this is unfolding, what percentage of the population do you think is going to end up being trans at the end of this? Do you think like one day it's going to be like 70% of the country is trans?
Well, we know already that about 1 in 5 adolescents now identifies, to use that hated word, identifies as part of the hypothetical.
The hated word. Bro, the way he fucking approaches this subject is so stupid. Like, he literally just like, he's so ridiculous. Like, how the fuck does anybody look at what Jordan Peterson has to say in this circumstance or in any other circumstance for that matter and go, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this shit seriously? He's just like such a fucking hateful little freak, dude. Blows my mind.
Hypothetical LGBTQ plus community. So it's 1 in 5. I don't know what the upper limit is. There's a consulting group in the UK now that's claiming there's 150 different genders. There's actually, I suppose, 7 billion different genders if you want to get technical about it, because everybody's temperament differs. But I don't know what the upper limit is. And I have no idea what the upper limit is for this surgical intervention. We'll see. But I don't find it, I don't find it the least bit acceptable. And if you think that your compassion is demanding that you extend your pity to the LGBTQ plus community at the cost of sterilizing children, you should think again. You're on the wrong side of this, and not in a trivial way.
I would appreciate if you don't ascribe beliefs to me that I don't have. Remember, my original question was
well, you said earlier in this question that,
I said Elliot Page is an adult, and so do you think that he has the right to transition? That was the original.
Bro, please play the video. Here, watch the video while I do this.
Yeah, but as a star and a public figure and a model for emulation, she also has the responsibility not to entice confusion.
Chatters are so fucking brain dead, dude. Here, go ahead. Here, watch it without me. Go ahead.
Adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of
what would you consider
to become trans.
First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
He gets so triggered, dude. It's so crazy.
In surgical interventions and see what you think. I mean, how many do you think is too many?
Again,
if we're talking about
I'll answer your question. The argument is it used to be very repressed because that's very outside of the tradition and the norm and the standard, and that now we sort of let the boot off the neck a little bit.
What used to be suppressed?
The entire LGBTQ community. I mean, it was very recently we even got gay marriage in the United States.
First of all, they're not a community.
Well, you understand the point I'm making.
No, actually, neither I understand it nor you, and that's why we're delving into it. First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical intervention, the clinical literature is absolutely clear on this. 80% of kids with gender dysphoria identify as homosexual when they mature. 80%. And that means the vast majority of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
No, see, I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on the kids, because I don't know the first thing about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation, though, is because my original question was about the adults and what your take is on the adults. And it sounds to me like, let me ask you guys, would you ban transition surgery for adults?
Dude, he's such a pussy. Like, I know what he's gonna say because Kyle texted me about this, but like, it's just not true. Like, no matter what he says, I know what he actually wants. He never is going to say no. He's not gonna say yes. He just refuses to fucking admit what his true opinions are in situations like this.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, really. We're
See,
paying
to
a
me-
big price for it. And I think that it was an act of stunning hubris to conduct the first trans surgery procedure. And it's not obvious.
It's like, I don't know. Okay, what the fuck does that mean? What do you mean you don't know? It's like consenting adults. He's like, no, I don't know. Fuck off, dude. Just say no.
To me at all that it's been a net social good. And
But
so,
aren't there some people that are obviously trans who were born in one body, they feel like they're in the other body, and when they're an adult, they can make the decision? And then even from just a freedom and liberty perspective, shouldn't they have that right? Even if they do it and then they regret it, shouldn't they have the right to try it?
it's a good question. I mean, it's a tricky one, right? Because there's all sorts of surgical enhancement procedures that are it's not obviously appropriate to make them illegal. And I don't know exactly where the cutoff line is, so to speak. And that's partly why we're having a public discussion about it. But this entire argument, in many ways, is stated so idiotically that it almost defies description. I mean, what do you mean feel like you're in the wrong body?
Well,
What kind of measurement is that? Now, hang on a second.
I was going to
There
answer.
are rules for these sorts of diagnostic decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The rule is that you have to make a valid and reliable diagnosis. That's if you're diagnosing depression or anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or cancer or anything like that. There are standards that you have to abide by in order to make a diagnosis.
It's so weird. Like, why is he acting like these things don't exist? Like, here's the problem, okay? Here's the issue, dickhead. This is supposed to be in your field. This is literally supposed to be in your field. Not directly in your field, but like, aren't you a fucking psychologist? You should at least have a cursory understanding of like the medical processes that take place. And the problem here is that either he knows they exist and refuses to acknowledge it because he's just like such a deceiving piece of shit who is just dishonest and grifting and like wants to be transphobic, or even worse than that, he's just a fucking dumbass and like didn't even do the research and is just trying to fucking spitball. Aren't you a Turk? Why aren't you helping the families of Greeks you killed? Why don't you give reparations to Greek and Armenians now that you're rich and famous, knowing your family members killed and raped them? I thought you were a progressive. Dude, where do these people come from?
In order to fulfill the obligations of your professional college. If someone comes to you and says, I feel like I have lung cancer, that is not sufficient grounds upon which to formulate a diagnosis, much less proceed to surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you mean by feel? What is that? Is that an emotion? Is it a motivation? Is it a philosophical conclusion? What is it?
Let me explain to you what I mean. So I've been doing my show for about a decade, and about 2 or 3 years into doing my show, there were, some stories here and there that I covered about the trans issue. Somebody who is trans reached out to me and explained to me in a very straightforward way, yeah, look, I was born biologically female. I feel like I'm biologically male. My reality
What does that
never lined
mean?
up. Well, I'm just explaining what they said, and then you can respond however you'd like to respond. And they told me as soon as I got the surgery, changed the way I dressed, changed the way I appeared, I felt phenomenally better. And so that's why, at least for me, this was the answer. Now, I think it would be incredibly arrogant for me to say back to that person, no, you shouldn't do that, or I know better than you do for yourself. Now, that's not to say that every time somebody does this, it works out well, of course, because everybody's an individual. But in some instances, that's the answer. So, me as a simple outsider, I just look at it and say, hey, whatever floats your boat, and if it works, it works.
Look, most of the time, my attitude is you can go to hell in handbasket any way you choose if you're an adult.
My favorite take of conservatives like this is like, why should I care about your feelings? And then he like cries for 8 hours about being banned off Twitter. Not even banned, suspended off Twitter because like he's just like saying that a mastectomy, the consensual mastectomy that an adult gave another consenting adult is literally fucking, Joseph Mengele style Nazi experimentation. Like, bro, you're a psycho. Like and not only that, but you're such a pathetic little sniveling crybaby bitch. You are the most dramatic little bitch on the fucking planet. Don't act like just because you are preaching from the mound of conservatism that you are somehow actually above it all. It's so silly. It's so stupid. I hate that conservatives try to make it seem like they are, rigorous in their academic research when they arrive at conclusions, when it's very clear that Jordan Peterson has not done the work, or has done the work, is aware of the empirical realities, and has refused to admit that, and is actually willingly misrepresenting and actually saying the exact opposite of the reality while simultaneously fucking crying all the time as a fragile little bitch boy. Are you describing us chatters or JP right now? Not sure. No, I'm talking about JP. It's so weird that like after years and years and years of conditioning, people kind of don't even consider conservatives to be on the crying bitch boy side ever. Like, take a deep breath and recognize that this motherfucker is not only crying, not only hysterical, but he's also hysterical because like trans people exist. Like, they're not doing anything to you, dog. You just want to harm them. It's so fucking weird. It's especially hilarious that he has gotten gender-affirming surgery in the form of a hair transplant. A hair transplant, sorry. It's actually not called a mastectomy. It's actually called a chest masculinization. Okay, regardless, like, who cares? You know what I'm talking about. He's been sent info by commenters and trans activists and given him a cursory read before discarding them. Bet. Yeah, it's so stupid. As someone that is currently majoring in psychology, listening to JP spitting out so much bullshit that goes directly against what you learn in psychology, it genuinely gives me a headache. It's not a field where you can just spout whatever you want like it's an academy in ancient Greece. There's a method to how you go about these things that involves extensive research, just skips all over and says whatever fits his agenda. Yeah. I mean, that is precisely what he's doing. And it's so obvious that in this circumstance, most people are just not going to, they're not going to do the research. They're not going to fucking fact check him. They're going to make it seem like he's being correct here. And I think that he is so horny. Back in the day, Jordan Peterson, pre-benzos, would not make this mistake. At least he would be smart enough to make it seem like he was only looking at empirical evidence that fits his purpose and never actually arrive at like a conclusion. He would just let that hang. So you made that conclusion for him. And that way you could never pin him on a position. And that way you could never say he's transphobic. Now he just doesn't give a fuck. He's not even doing any research. He's not even looking at the evidence whatsoever. He's lazy as fuck. He's just dropped the ball entirely. He's just like, you're wrong. Up yours. It's really interesting to see this just transformation. There were attempts to create a definitive differential diagnosis for what makes trans people trans, but it was hysterically boomer brain. He's really fallen. He used to sound smart at least. Now he just sounds dumb and angry. Exactly. He's so annoying. Maybe he regrets his gender affirming surgery. You think he regrets his hair transplant? I don't think so.
Now, this problem is complicated and compounded by the fact of the necessity of medical involvement and the ethics on the medical front. So when you asked me about how that should be regulated, my answer was, I'm not exactly sure about that.
How is hair transplant gender affirming? Why would that not be gender affirming surgery? What do you think gender affirming surgery is? What do you think TRT is? Testosterone replacement therapy is quite literally the same as hormone replacement. It's HRT. Testosterone replacement therapy is hormone replacement therapy. For example, that's what Joe Rogan does, right? It's so ironic that every single one of these like massively transphobic individuals have taken some form of gender affirming surgery, literally affirming a male hairline. Hair transplants hide baldness, and they're the opposite of gender affirming. Okay, so it's a trans surgery then. I take finasteride and minoxidil. Okay, I take Rogaine from time to time, and I take fucking DHT blockers. That is gender affirming hormone blocking therapy. Okay, that's what I do for my fucking hairline. Jordan Peterson has gotten a hair transplant. You don't have to just be trans to be able to take to use these sorts of measures. You get it? And that's what's really fucking stupid. And Jordan Peterson is deeply hypocritical because he has taken advantage of that, but he doesn't want trans people to do it. He's just saying that like, it's all right when I do it, but when trans people do it, it's not all right. And all the fucking dumbass chatters being like, Hasan is trans, confirmed pog, are quite literally doing the exact opposite of the argument that I'm trying to make right now. Stop fucking around. You fucking idiots. My point is, cis people do this, and trans people do this too. Stop fucking making jokes about this shit for 1 second. Jesus Christ, dude. The point is, it allows you to be the gender that you feel, which is a spectrum, therefore affirming your gender because your gender is how you feel. Exactly. It's gender affirming masculinity is not about what testosterone does to you. It's about what makes you seem more masculine in your community. Yeah, it's medically intervening because you don't feel like your appearance matches your gender or the way you want to look. You could always draw back to the hateful cis is natural argument. Okay. Well, this fucking bald-ass hairline is natural, okay? Not treating cancer is natural. There is no such thing as like, oh, well, that's natural. We're talking about medicine, dickhead, is what I would say to Jordan Peterson if he said, oh, that's natural. What, do you think it's natural to go to the fucking gym and pump weights? It's not natural. You're quite literally doing that. You're quite literally strengthening your body for no reason other than looking a certain way. Every part of society is designed specifically to overcome nature. Dude, how do you ever plan to convince normies when you're saying things like this convince? You know what's really funny about this take? I have changed the minds of more transphobic people than anyone else you know. So let me do my thing and you do your thing. Your thing is just talking shit in the chat. Half of this fucking community was either transphobic or had internalized transphobia and no longer have that kind of attitude or sentiment. Instead of fucking complaining and crying and whatever, how about you just let me do my thing? I say it every time, but I never would have realized that I was trans if not for this community. There you go.
Yeah. Although it isn't obvious to me that it's obvious to me that the trans surgery enterprise has gone way too far. Thousands
Trans
of people
surgery.
too far. And I'm certain that it's harmed exponentially more people than it's helped.
He has no evidence. Kyle should have fucking blasted his asshole.
All right, guys, what you just saw was a teaser clip from my podcast.
Okay, so he did a podcast with him. Jordan Peterson pressed Trump on the record. Yeah, I don't care about this. Notice how he pushes back on what it means to feel like a man, woman, just to derail the conversation with semantics. Clearly, he can understand personally what it feels like to be a man and not say a muppet. It's wild that every single thing he mentioned, the exact opposite is true, and there's evidence for it.